all the way through this negotiation over the last 2 years, and let's be clear, it's been pretty inconclusive and unsatisfactory, has had at its heart this dilemma. Either the country stays close to Europe to minimize economic damage, in which case we're going to be abiding one way or another by Europe's rules, or alternatively we decide we want to break from Europe altogether, in which case we will be free of those rules, but that's going to cause considerable economic damage. Both of these things are Brexit, but so far we've not resolved which one of them we want. What the paper we're publishing today shows is that without membership of the customs union, we face a very, very difficult economic future. Even inside a customs union, without being part of the single market, there's still going to be friction-full trade between Britain and the rest of Europe, and in particular, there's no resolution of the Northern Ireland question. Of course, if we do decide that we stay within the European Economic Area and we stay within the customs union, we minimize the economic damage, and that's the only way to prevent there being friction in the trade between Britain and Europe and between the two parts of the island of Ireland. However, people are then very justifiably going to ask, well, what's the point of leaving? Because we have to abide by Europe's rules. On the other hand, if we break from Europe altogether and we do what a lot of the hardline Brexiteers want us to do, we're out of the single market, we're out of the customs union, then what this shows is there's going to be very considerable economic cost to that option. So this is the central dilemma. The only thing that resolves the problem of trade is actually to stay in the single market. And this is the challenge for both political parties. Because the Conservative Party think that if they deliver Brexit in inverted commas, then the public is going to thank them and is going to be grateful for it. But the truth of the matter is, if they end up trying to stay in some form of relationship with Europe and abide by Europe's rules, the Brexiteers will shout betrayal. And if they don't and they break from Europe, then the public is going to say, you've caused us real economic damage. So the most sensible thing for the Conservative Party is to do the thing that's least economically damaging, but then say to the British people, you decide whether in those circumstances you want Brexit to go ahead or not. For the Labour Party, the challenge is even greater. I think the Labour Party's ended up in the worst of both worlds. The people who really support Brexit, the ardent Brexiteers, now think the Labour Party sold them out because it wants to be part of a customs union. But for the people that voted Remain, and there are 16 million of them, they've now worked out that the Labour leadership position is essentially on the fundamental issue of the single market, the same as the Conservative Party position. So they're not enthusiastic about Labour on the position of Brexit either. The smart thing for Labour Party to do would be to say to the British people, when we said we'd do a jobs-first Brexit, we will. We will vote, therefore, to stay in the European Economic Area. But because we acknowledge that will be unsatisfactory for many of the people that voted leave, if you then, the British people, want to proceed on that basis, that should be your choice. And therefore, Parliament having decided, it should then put it back to the people for the final decision. In my view, if the Labour Party did this, it would be the smart thing to do politically, and it would be the right thing to do for the country. So this Brexit negotiation is still in the same position of uncertainty that it's been over all these months of negotiation. I think the government may well try and postpone the decision yet again as to how to resolve the central dilemma of the negotiation. Parliament should make sure they can't do that. We've got to know what we're voting for and what the future relationship is before we leave Europe in March 2019. But for both political parties, they've got to understand the best way out of their different political dilemmas is to come to the decision they think is right in the interests of the country, and that decision is to make sure we minimize economic damage and therefore stay in the single market. And once they've taken that decision, put it back to the British people to ask them whether in those circumstances they want to proceed or not. This is the smart thing to do, it's the sensible thing to do, it's in the interest of the country to do. It is the most important decision this country's taken since the Second World War. It was originated with the June 2016 referendum vote. The final decision should also be taken by the people, but they should be asked clearly for what they really think, given what we now know. No point in speculating about it. There's only one way to find out, and that's to ask them, and that's what we should do.